Hello. So I'm beginning to make it a practice to speak a little more about my story because something, the story has been held pretty sacredly, and it's becoming a pain to hold on to it anymore. Given how it seems like there is more and more benefit to having spoken it than keeping it within me. Yeah. So this is another aspect. May seem like a small bit, but it's actually the bit. Um, it's a it's a pretty timeless story. This may also seem like my Me Too story. Yeah. So as a baby, I don't know when, but at some point in time, I was abused, sexually abused, but I don't know when, where, by whom. And all I know is that I was sexually abused, and as a baby, because I don't even remember when. The point is, I just knew that the matter is complex, and that it's a revelation. The why, what, how, and the complex nature of it will come into my awareness as I progress, as I move through life. Now, this is an let's say an awakening or a realization, an insight, as I went about living life, and I started seeing several manifestations of what people are calling as a Me Too movement. But I was also seeing that it is not as black and white as it seems, that there are several layers, several colors, several shades in the cause and effect of why this Me Too has come about. And as I've been observing people, as I've been observing movements in behavior, in social dynamics, I notice there's a lot of imbalance between giving and taking. And the imbalance is in the giving and taking of the male and female gender. And some bits of it has been playing about in the dynamics that is a family, in the dynamics that is groups, in the dynamics that is our learning environments, in the dynamics that is we as individuals and the administration, in the dynamics that is we vis-a-vis Earth, or life on planet, and what we call as life in general, may not be being seen as fine, as a together, because of the imbalance. And this imbalance is also what is giving rise to an objective world versus a subjective world, where an objective world is more matter, material, and subjective is more, it's supposedly said as left to interpretations, based on personal interpretations. As I've been inquiring into things, as I've been observing behaviors, I noticed that objective and subjective is more like the male and female, matter and energy, where matter is more the objective, what you can touch, feel, you can, there's a palpability to it, and the female is more like the energy, not quite so visible, working from home, maybe, managing the home ground, but whose function gives rise to the dynamics of the family. People are working, there are people studying and going about it. And then there is an imbalance between what is seen as, okay, the male of the gender, the male of the group, of the, say, a structure, of an infrastructure, is seen as doing things. And hence we have a male dominated world, as all everything is happening in terms of structure, in terms of systems, as cause and effect. And the subjective, or the one who's cooking and maintaining the hearth, the home ground, and the soft skills, they are seen as, like a little bit of, it's there, but because it's not seen, is not acknowledged as having an equal role to play, and hence is called as, subjective personal interpretations that's give rise to the subjective world, which is said to be personal interpretations, whereas the objective is you can see how this cause and effect happens. When this happens, this happens. But not everything can be explained by this, because there are several unanswered questions, and the unanswered questions have answers in the subjective, and the subjective and objective are not quite coming together, and hence we have a haphazard, higgledy-piggledy view of what reality is or what life is. Life is seen as something that either you need to bear with, you need to, or something that you need to live with until you die, or in some less than complementary ways is how life is regarded as though it's a system that you need to deal with, rather than life is an experience you live. And as though there's a confusion in what living means, when there is so much of survival, so much of managing things and happening, but the word living does not seem to be really being experienced or gotten, though there is many interpretations and understanding of it, just like how our interpretations and understanding of life is. Now, why am I saying all this? How does all of this have a play with the first instance I shared from my story? Things happen. The abuse was not what happened as a baby. The abuse is the continual imbalance that has been there in the experience of everyday living, where there is a difference between how males and females are regarded, how the experience of living versus the material is regarded, and hence which is given more importance. As a material is, you shouldn't be so materialistic. Or there is, spirituality is it's a different journey. Like when you're an old, or personal development is a thing that you have an option of, that it is good to invest in, but it's as an option. And an individual often goes unseen, because in lieu of the collective, for what is happening in the collective. So the imbalance, the abuse actually is of the individual in the course of everyday living, and not the actual abuse per se, which happened as a baby. That the complexity involved in why that came about lies in everything else that happened, that has been showing up in the societal behavior, in interpersonal behaviors, which gave rise to experiences that people are now calling as the Me Too. There are domestic violences of several kinds. These are symptoms of a disease, which at the root is an imbalance between being and becoming, between an individual and the collective, between an imbalance between opposites where they're not seen in common grounds, an imbalance between the male and female experiences. What does the male experience mean? What does the female experience mean? And what's the value accorded to each? And how is the balance showing up in the giving and taking of what is the male and the female, masculine and feminine? In a more cosmological sense, it's called as the masculine and the feminine, yes. It's also called as nature and nurture. One you can see, one you can't see, but then within each person is a nature and nurture. So the imbalance between nature and nurture within a person is what gives rise to the dynamics that is interpersonal, between male, female, between individual and collective, between a person and life in general. So this is a perspective I put forth And the point is that your individual experience um, is not unique to you. Yes, it is your experience, but it's also an experience shared by many. And the complexity arises from that we don't see how it's not an individual experience, but that it's a secret shared by many. But each of us regard it as a secret in ourselves. And hence we fester in the individual personal hell as though that's our own secret. And because of which we may not be seeing the collective experience, which is not acknowledged as a collective experience, whereby the imbalance is maintained. Imbalance is maintained so that the balance is not coming about. Speaking about it, and I'm not talking about speaking about in terms of the Me Too movement. What I'm saying is speaking about it in terms of us experiencing an imbalance between individual and the collective. And what does the individual experience mean? Not speaking that is what is maintaining the imbalance. I hope this gives food for thought. I hope this makes the difference in experiencing the individual as being as much important as a collective, and how voicing our individuality is what is required to bring that balance between the individual and collective. Thank you for listening.